Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck of the massive alien ship and watched the stars drift past the thick windows. The vessel called Stellar Dawn was bigger than any human building he had ever seen. Its metal corridors stretched for miles, in every direction, and housed thousands of alien beings from across the galaxy. Jake had been a Marine commander for 15 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. The ship belonged to the Veltar Empire, and Jake was here with 12 other humans as part of the first military exchange program between Earth and the Galactic Alliance. 3 months ago, humanity had made first contact with alien civilizations, and now they were trying to prove they belonged among the stars. Jake looked down at his simple uniform and wondered if humans were ready for what waited out there. Lisa Park walked up beside him, carrying a data pad filled with diplomatic notes. She was the human liaison officer and had been working day and night to make sure this mission succeeded. Her job was to convince the aliens that humans deserved respect and a place in the galactic community. So far, the task seemed impossible. The Veltar were ancient warriors who had conquered half the galaxy over thousands of years. They stood 8 feet tall with thick scales covering their bodies like natural armor. Sharp claws extended from their fingers, and their yellow eyes could see in complete darkness. They moved like predators, because that was exactly what they were. Every human on the ship felt small and weak when the aliens walked past. Lisa sighed as she looked at her notes. The Veltar leaders had been polite but dismissive during the first week of meetings. They treated humans like curious children who had stumbled into adult business. General Kethvar was the worst of them all. He commanded the Veltar military forces and made no effort to hide his opinion that humans were too soft and weak for real warfare. Jake had watched the general during training sessions with his own soldiers. The Veltar moved with deadly grace and could tear through steel plates with their bare hands. Their reflexes were faster than anything humans could match, and they had been bred for combat over millions of years of evolution. Jake understood why they thought humans were inferior. The other human Marines felt the same frustration. Sergeant Alex Cooper had been unusually quiet since arriving on the ship. Alex was one of the best fighters Jake had ever known, but even he seemed intimidated by the alien warriors. The man had won championships in mixed martial arts before joining the military and had survived 3 combat deployments without a scratch. If Alex felt outmatched, then maybe humans really were out of their league. Dr. Rachel Stone finished her medical checks in the sick bay and joined the growing group of humans near the observation windows. She had been studying Veltar physiology for weeks, and her findings were not encouraging. Their bones were 3 times denser than human bones, and their muscle fibers could generate incredible force. Their scales could stop most projectile weapons, and their claws could cut through combat armor like paper. Lieutenant Ben Richards looked up from his communication station, where he had been monitoring Earth broadcasts. The news from home was not good either. Many people were excited about humanity joining the galactic community, but others worried about what would happen if the aliens decided humans were a threat. Some politicians demanded that Earth build massive defense fleets, while others insisted on peaceful cooperation at any cost. The tension on the ship had been building for days, and Jake could feel something approaching. The Veltar warriors had been watching the humans with growing amusement. They whispered among themselves in their clicking language and pointed at human equipment with obvious disdain. Their weapons looked like toys compared to alien technology, and their armor seemed like thin cloth next to Veltar scales. Captain Lisa Park called the human team together for an emergency meeting. General Kethvar had requested a demonstration of human combat techniques for the alien officers. He claimed it would help build understanding between the species, but Lisa suspected he wanted to publicly prove human weakness. The general had been pushing for this kind of display since the humans arrived. Jake gathered his Marines in their small quarters and explained the situation. The Veltar wanted to see how humans fought, and General Kethvar had suggested a training. Spar between one of his warriors and a human volunteer. The alien had assured them it would be completely safe and non-lethal. Jake did not trust the general, but refusing would look like cowardice. Alex Cooper stepped forward immediately and volunteered for the demonstration. The other Marines tried to talk him out of it, but Alex had made up his mind. He was tired of feeling like a weakling and wanted to show that humans could hold their own against alien warriors. Jake tried to explain that this was not about proving anything, but Alex would not listen. The news of the upcoming demonstration spread quickly through the ship. Alien officers from dozens of different species requested permission to watch the event. The ship's main combat arena was reserved for the following day, and betting pools started forming among the crew. Most aliens wagered on how quickly the Mao human would be defeated. Dr. Stone pulled Jake aside and expressed her concerns about the medical risks. Veltar warriors could easily kill a human by accident, even while holding back their full strength. She had studied their anatomy and knew that their natural weapons could cause massive trauma with minimal effort. Jake shared her worries, but knew there was no backing down now. Lisa Park spent the evening in emergency communications with Earth Command. The political implications of this demonstration could affect humanity's future in the galaxy. If Alex lost badly, it would confirm alien beliefs about human weakness. If he somehow won, it might make other species see humans as a threat. Either outcome could be dangerous for Earth. The Veltar warriors seemed confident about the upcoming match. They had chosen their champion carefully, and Warcast Zephon was considered one of their finest fighters. He had never lost a challenge and had defeated warriors from multiple alien species. The idea that a human could pose any real threat was laughable to most of the crew. Jake found Alex in the training room practicing his techniques late into the night. The Marine was focused and determined, but Jake could see the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Alex knew he was not just fighting for himself, but representing all of humanity. The pressure would have crushed most people, but Alex seemed to thrive on it. As the day of the demonstration approached, the atmosphere on the ship became electric with anticipation. Humans tried to appear confident while aliens made jokes about the upcoming entertainment. General Kethvar announced that the event would be broadcast live to both the Veltar homeworld and Earth, so both species could witness the outcome. The combat arena was a massive circular chamber with raised seating for spectators. Advanced medical equipment stood ready around the edges, and the floor was covered with impact-absorbing material. Everything about the setup suggested the aliens expected significant violence, despite their claims about safety. Jake stood with his team as aliens filed into the viewing areas. Hundreds of different species gathered to watch what they assumed would be a brief lesson in predator superiority. The humans felt isolated and outnumbered as clicking and growling voices filled the air around them. General Kethvar took his place at the center of the arena and began explaining the rules to the assembled crowd. No weapons would be allowed, and the match would end when one fighter submitted or was rendered unconscious. He emphasized that this was merely a training exercise designed to build understanding between species. Warcast Zephon entered the arena, and the alien crowd roared approval. He stood nearly 9 feet tall, and his scales gleamed under the bright lights. His claws extended as he moved, and his yellow eyes scanned the human section with predatory interest. Every movement displayed deadly grace and overwhelming physical power. Alex Cooper walked onto the arena floor, and the contrast was stark. He looked small and fragile next to the alien warrior despite being larger than most humans. His simple training, clothes seemed inadequate compared to Zephon's natural armor. The alien spectators fell silent as they studied the human with mixture of curiosity and pity. Lisa Park gripped the railing as she watched the two fighters face each other in the center of the arena. Everything humanity had worked for could be decided in the next few minutes. She had spent months building diplomatic relationships that could be destroyed if this demonstration went wrong. Jake felt his heart racing as General Kethvar raised his hand to signal the start of the match. The alien crowd leaned forward in anticipation while the humans held their breath. Neither species understood that they were about to witness something that would change the galaxy forever. The combat arena buzzed with excited energy as alien beings from across the galaxy settled into their seats. Representatives from the reptilian Sauroch Empire hissed softly to each other, while the insectoid Zephyrians clicked their mandibles in anticipation. Floating gas beings from the Nebula Consortium drifted near the ceiling, and their translated thoughts whispered through the communication systems. Everyone had come to witness what they believed would be an educational demonstration of human limitations. Dr. Rachel Stone nervously checked her medical equipment for the third time in 10 minutes. Emergency surgical tools lay ready on sterile trays, while diagnostic scanners hummed quietly beside her station. She had studied Veltar anatomy extensively over the past weeks, and the data terrified her. Their bone density exceeded anything found in Earth's fossil records, and their muscle tissue could generate forces that would snap human bones like twigs. Lieutenant Ben Richards adjusted his communication array to broadcast the event simultaneously to Earth and the Veltar homeworld. Millions of beings across the galaxy would watch this encounter and form opinions about humanity based on what happened in the next few minutes. The weight of that responsibility made his hands shake as he calibrated the transmission equipment. General Kethvar stood at the center of the arena, wearing ceremonial armor that gleamed under the bright lights. His yellow eyes swept across the assembled crowd before settling on the small group of humans clustered near one section of seating. A predatory smile crossed his scaled features as he began addressing the audience in the common galactic language. He explained that this demonstration would help all species understand the capabilities and limitations of the newest members of the galactic community. The rules were simple and designed for safety. No weapons or artificial enhancements would be permitted, and the contest would end immediately upon submission or unconsciousness. He emphasized that this was merely a training exercise to promote understanding between different civilizations. The general gestured toward his chosen champion, and Warcast Zephon stepped into the arena. The massive Veltar warrior moved with fluid grace that belied his enormous size. His natural armor plates shifted smoothly as he walked, and his retractable claws gleamed like polished metal. Scars from countless battles marked his hide, and his yellow eyes held the confidence of a predator who had never known defeat. Alien spectators roared their approval as Zephon raised his arms in acknowledgement. He had fought warriors from dozens of different species and emerged victorious from every encounter. His reputation extended across multiple star systems, and young Veltar warriors studied recordings of his techniques. The idea that any human could challenge such a fighter seemed absurd to everyone watching. Alex Cooper rose from the human section and walked toward the arena floor. His teammates watched with mixture of pride and terror as he descended the steps. Jake Morrison had tried one last time to talk him out of this demonstration, but Alex remained determined to represent his species with honor. The Marine had spent his entire military career preparing for impossible situations, and this felt like the ultimate test. The contrast between the two fighters became apparent as they approached the center of the arena. Zephon towered over Alex by more than 2 feet and outweighed him by several hundred pounds. The alien's natural weapons and armor made him appear invincible, while Alex looked vulnerable in his simple training clothes. Even some humans began to doubt whether their representative could survive the encounter. Captain Lisa Park gripped her datapad tightly as she watched the preparations unfold. Every diplomatic relationship she had carefully built over the past months could be destroyed depending on the outcome of this contest. If Alex suffered a humiliating defeat, it would confirm alien suspicions about human weakness. If he somehow managed to win, it might make other species view humanity as a potential threat requiring elimination. Dr. Stone positioned herself as close to the arena as possible while remaining outside the combat zone. Her medical scanners were already analyzing both fighters, and the readings worried her greatly. Zephon's cardiovascular system operated at efficiency, levels that seemed impossible, while his skeletal structure could withstand impacts that would pulverize human bones. She had calculated that even a casual strike from the alien could cause fatal injuries. The betting pools among alien spectators heavily favored Zephon, with most wagers focusing on how quickly the human would be defeated. Sorok warriors estimated 30 seconds, while Zephyrian hive minds predicted the contest would end in half that time. A few compassionate species bet on Alex lasting a full minute, but nobody seriously considered the possibility of human victory. Ben Richards established communication links with Earth and began streaming live footage to military commanders and government officials. Similar broadcasts reached the Veltar homeworld, where millions of citizens gathered to watch their champion demonstrate the superiority of their warrior culture. The political implications of this single combat would ripple across the galaxy. Regardless of the outcome, General Kethvar called both fighters to the center of the arena and reviewed the rules one final time. He seemed confident that this demonstration would reinforce the natural order of galactic civilization. Humans would learn their place among the established powers and accept their role as junior partners in the alliance. The general had no intention of allowing his species to be challenged by newcomers. Zephon studied his human opponent with professional interest rather than concern. He had fought smaller aliens before and always adapted his techniques to avoid causing unnecessary death. The key was to end the contest quickly and decisively while minimizing actual harm. His species valued honor in combat, and crushing a clearly inferior opponent brought no glory. Alex stood calmly as the alien warrior examined him. Years of military training had taught him to control fear and anxiety during dangerous situations. He had studied everything available about Veltar fighting techniques and knew he faced overwhelming disadvantages in size, strength, and natural weapons. His only hope lay in speed, technique, and the element of surprise. The human team watched nervously as their representative prepared for combat. Sergeant Pete Brooks whispered prayers while Corporal Amy Davis recorded everything on her personal device. They had trained alongside Alex for years and knew his capabilities better than anyone. Even so, the alien warrior looked unstoppable, and their friend seemed impossibly small by comparison. Alien medical teams positioned themselves around the arena perimeter with equipment designed to treat multiple species. Most of their preparations focused on human physiology since they expected Zephon to emerge uninjured. Advanced surgical robots stood ready to repair the damage that Veltar claws could inflict on human tissue and bone, the atmospheric processors. adjusted air composition to optimal levels for both species while gravity generators ensured consistent conditions across the arena floor. Temperature controls maintained comfort for the diverse audience, while acoustic dampeners prevented the crowd noise from interfering with the fighters. Every detail had been planned to ensure a fair contest. Dr. Stone ran final diagnostics on her equipment as the moment of truth approached. Her medical scanners showed that Alex's heart rate remained surprisingly steady despite the obvious danger he faced. The human's biochemistry indicated high alertness, but no signs of panic or overwhelming fear. She wondered if the Marine truly understood what he was about to face. General Kethvar raised his hand to signal the beginning of the contest, and the arena fell silent. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy focused their attention on two fighters who represented completely different evolutionary paths. The outcome would influence diplomatic relationships, military alliances, and trade agreements for generations to come. Zefon shifted into a combat stance that emphasized his natural advantages while maintaining defensive options. His training taught him to respect every opponent regardless of apparent weaknesses. Many skilled warriors had fallen because they underestimated smaller or seemingly inferior foes. The Veltar champion would not make such an error. Alex adopted a more mobile stance that would allow him to utilize speed and agility against his larger opponent. He had spent countless hours studying recordings of Veltar combat techniques and identified several potential weaknesses in their fighting style. Their confidence in natural advantages sometimes made them predictable, and Alex planned to exploit that tendency. The general's hand dropped, and the demonstration began. What every spectator expected to be a brief educational exercise was about to become something that would reshape their understanding of human capabilities and change the balance of power across the galaxy forever. The moment General Kethvar dropped his hand, everything changed. Zefon moved forward with the fluid confidence of an apex predator who had never known defeat. His massive frame carried no wasted motion as he closed the distance to his human opponent. 8 feet of muscle and natural armor advanced with deadly purpose, while retractable claws extended to their full lethal length. The alien crowd leaned forward, expecting to witness a quick demonstration of Veltar superiority. Alex Cooper remained perfectly still until the last possible second. Years of combat training had taught him to read opponents and identify the exact moment when committed attacks became vulnerable to counteraction. Zefon's approach followed classical Veltar doctrine that emphasized overwhelming force and intimidation. The alien expected his size and natural weapons to create fear and hesitation in his opponent. When Zefon launched his first strike, Alex moved like flowing water around the attack. The massive clawed hand swept through empty air as the human dropped, low and circled to the alien's left side. Every movement was precise and economical, with no energy wasted on unnecessary flourishes. The watching aliens murmured in surprise as their champion's opening attack found no target. Dr. Rachel Stone watched, her medical scanners with growing amazement. Alex's vital signs remained steady despite the obvious danger, while his muscle activation patterns showed perfect coordination between opposing groups. The human was not just avoiding attacks, but doing so with minimal effort while maintaining perfect balance and positioning. Her instruments detected no signs of panic or overwhelming stress. Zefon paused momentarily as his first attack missed completely. In thousands of combat encounters, no opponent had ever avoided his opening strike so effortlessly. The human moved with a fluidity that seemed impossible for such a small frame. The Veltar warrior adjusted his stance and launched a combination of strikes designed to overwhelm any defense through sheer volume, and Speed Alex flowed around each attack like he was dancing rather than fighting. His movement patterns defied the alien understanding of how combat should work. Where Zephon expected resistance, he found empty space. Where the alien committed to powerful strikes, Alex was already somewhere else entirely. The human's footwork carried him through dangerous situations that should have resulted in serious injury or death. Lieutenant Ben Richards checked his communication equipment as excited chatter filled the broadcasts from Earth. Military analysts were frantically trying to understand what they were seeing, while politicians demanded explanations for Alex's unexpected performance. Similar confusion spread through alien communication networks as species that had never questioned Veltar combat. Supremacy watched their assumptions crumble. The watching crowd began to stir as the contest continued longer than anyone expected. Sarok warriors hissed in confusion, while Zephyrian hive minds clicked frantically among themselves. The floating gas beings of the Nebula Consortium pulsed with colors that indicated extreme agitation. Every species present had based their military doctrines on the assumption that natural physical advantages determined combat outcomes. Zephon pressed his attack with growing frustration as none of his techniques found their target. The human continued to move around and through his guard with impossible ease. What had begun as a careful demonstration was becoming an exercise in futility. The alien warrior increased his aggression and began abandoning the defensive techniques that had kept him alive through countless battles. Captain Lisa Park realized that everything was changing as she watched Alex systematically avoid every attack. The diplomatic implications were enormous, and she was not certain whether this development would help or harm humanity's position in the galactic community. Other species might view humans as a threat if they could neutralize Veltar warriors. So effectively, Alex began to shift from pure defense to controlled counterattacks. His strikes targeted specific points where Veltar anatomy created vulnerabilities, despite their natural armor. Years of studying alien physiology with Dr. Stone had taught him exactly where to apply pressure for maximum effect. Each blow was calculated to accumulate damage rather than seeking immediate victory. The first human strike landed on a nerve cluster beneath Zephon's left arm, and the alien's claws retracted involuntarily. The second found a gap between armor, plates that protected the warrior's midsection. The third targeted a pressure point that disrupted the alien's balance and coordination. None of the attacks would have been effective against human opponents, but Alex had trained specifically for this encounter. Zephon stumbled as his left leg failed to respond properly to neural commands. The human had struck another nerve cluster, with surgical precision and temporary paralysis spread through the affected limb. The alien warrior had never experienced such targeted attacks, and his confusion grew as his body began failing to obey his commands. Dr. Stone's medical scanners showed exactly what was happening as Alex systematically disabled his opponent's nervous system. The human was applying techniques she had only seen in advanced surgical procedures. Each strike targeted specific anatomical structures with precision that required intimate knowledge of Veltar physiology. The display was simultaneously beautiful and terrifying. The alien crowd fell completely silent as their champion began to falter. Zephon's movements became increasingly erratic as nerve disruption spread through his massive frame. The warrior, who had seemed invincible moments earlier, was losing control of his own body through techniques that no alien species had ever developed or encountered. Alex moved with mechanical precision as he continued his systematic dismantling of the Veltar warrior. 6 seconds into the contest, he struck the nerve cluster controlling Zephon's right arm and heard bone crack as the alien's defensive position collapsed. The sound echoed through the silent arena like a gunshot, and several spectators gasped in shock. General Kethvar stared in disbelief as his champion began to collapse. Everything he understood about combat and warrior culture was being challenged by a small human who moved like smoke and struck like lightning. The general's confidence in Veltar's superiority cracked as he watched thousands of years of military doctrine prove useless. 9 seconds elapsed as Alex drove his knee into Zephon's solar plexus with precisely calculated force. The blow disrupted the alien's breathing and sent him crashing to the arena floor. The massive warrior who had inspired fear across multiple star systems lay gasping and unable to rise. His natural armor and superior strength meant nothing against an opponent who understood exactly how to exploit physiological weaknesses. Ben Richards watched his timer as the impossible continued to unfold. Earth's military commanders were shouting questions through the communication links while alien observers sat in stunned silence. The contest that everyone expected to last seconds was approaching its conclusion, but not in the way anyone had predicted. 12 seconds after the demonstration began, Alex Cooper had war-cast Zephon pinned helplessly on the arena floor. The human's forearm pressed against the alien's throat, while his other hand controlled both of Zephon's arms through leverage and positioning. The massive warrior was completely immobilized, despite his overwhelming advantages in size and strength. Zephon's yellow eyes showed confusion and growing panic as he realized his situation was hopeless. The small human had systematically destroyed every assumption about combat effectiveness that the Veltar had held for millennia. Natural weapons and armor meant nothing against an opponent who understood how to turn strength into weakness and size into vulnerability. Alex maintained perfect control as he spoke quietly to his defeated opponent. His voice was calm and respectful as he offered Zephon the opportunity to submit with honor. The human showed no anger or aggression despite having just accomplished something that seemed impossible moments earlier. His demeanor suggested that this outcome had been inevitable from the beginning. The alien warrior tapped the arena floor 3 times in the universal signal of submission. The sound seemed impossibly loud in the completely silent chamber as thousands of beings processed what they had just witnessed. The demonstration that was supposed to prove human weakness had instead revealed capabilities that challenged everything. The galaxy thought it knew about combat General Kethvar stood frozen as he tried to comprehend the implications of what had just occurred. His greatest champion had been defeated in 12 seconds by a human who appeared completely unremarkable by alien standards. The foundation of Veltar military doctrine had crumbled before his eyes, and he had no idea how to respond. Alex released his hold and helped Zephon to his feet with the same respect he would show any worthy opponent. The gesture was lost on most alien observers, but other humans recognized the significance. Their representative had not just won an impossible victory, but had done so while maintaining the honor and dignity that defined human military culture. Dr. Stone rushed onto the arena floor to examine both fighters as the stunned crowd began to process what they had witnessed. Her medical scanners showed that Alex was completely uninjured, while Zephon suffered from multiple nerve disruptions that would require treatment but cause no permanent damage. The human had won decisively while avoiding unnecessary harm to his opponent. The aftermath of the 12-second defeat sent shockwaves through every level of galactic society. Within hours of the broadcast ending, emergency sessions convened in alien governments across multiple star systems. Military leaders who had dismissed Humans, as weak newcomers, suddenly found themselves scrambling to understand what they had witnessed. The recording of Alex Cooper systematically dismantling Warcast Zephon played repeatedly on communication networks. While analysts tried to comprehend the implications, Commander Jake Morrison found his communication station flooded with urgent messages from Earth's military leadership. Generals who had viewed this exchange program as a friendly cultural mission now realized they were dealing with something far more significant. Admiral Patricia Webb's message was typical of the flood reaching the stellar dawn. Human combat. Capabilities needed immediate reassessment, and the military wanted detailed reports on everything the team had observed about alien fighting techniques. Dr. Rachel Stone worked frantically in the medical bay as both human and alien physicians sought to understand what had happened during the contest. Zephon lay on an examination table, while her scanners mapped the precise nerve disruptions that had rendered him helpless. The Veltar medical staff clustered around her equipment, asking questions about human anatomical knowledge and combat training methods. The alien physicians were amazed by the surgical precision of Alex's strikes. Each blow had targeted specific neural pathways with accuracy that required detailed understanding of Veltar physiology. Dr. Stone explained that humans had developed extensive medical knowledge through centuries of treating injuries and studying biological systems. What aliens saw as natural superiority, humans viewed as puzzles to be solved through science, and Training General Kethvar stood in his private quarters, staring at recordings of the defeat while trying to process what it meant for his entire civilization. The Veltar Empire had built its power on the foundation of warrior supremacy that stretched back millions of years. Their natural advantages in size, strength, and predatory instincts had made them the dominant military force across known space. Watching that foundation crumble in 12 seconds challenged everything he believed about strength, and Combat Captain Lisa Park realized that humanity's diplomatic situation had become incredibly complex overnight. The alien species were no longer dismissing humans as harmless newcomers, but she was not certain whether the new respect would prove beneficial or dangerous. Several alien ambassadors had already requested private meetings to discuss human capabilities, while others seemed to be withdrawing from previous agreements. The Sauroch Empire's representative demanded to know whether humans possessed other hidden abilities that had not been revealed during diplomatic negotiations. Their reptilian culture valued direct confrontation, and they respected Alex's victory even while fearing its implications. The Sauroch military wanted to arrange their own combat demonstrations to better understand human fighting techniques. The insectoid Zephyrians responded differently to the revelation of human capabilities. Their hive-mind consciousness had already begun calculating the strategic implications of Alex's victory for galactic power structures. They submitted formal requests for human military advisors while simultaneously beginning defensive preparations, in case humanity proved hostile to their interests. Lieutenant Ben Richards monitored communication traffic from dozens of alien species as news of the demonstration spread across the galaxy. Some civilizations expressed interest in forming closer alliances with humanity, while others seemed to view humans as potential threats requiring careful monitoring. The political landscape that had seemed stable yesterday was shifting rapidly. As established assumptions collapsed, Zephon slowly regained full mobility as Dr. Stone's treatments reversed the nerve disruptions caused by Alex's precise strikes. The proud warrior struggled with emotions he had never experienced before as he tried to understand his defeat. He had trained for combat since childhood and achieved mastery of techniques passed down through countless generations. None of that preparation had prepared him for an opponent who fought with such calculated precision. Alex Cooper found himself surrounded by alien warriors who wanted to understand his techniques. Representatives from multiple species requested demonstrations while others asked detailed questions about human training methods. The attention made him uncomfortable because he knew his victory had created diplomatic complications that extended far beyond the original demonstration. The betting pools that had heavily favored Zephon now faced massive payouts to the few beings who had wagered on the human. More importantly, military attachés from every major alien power were demanding access to combat footage and detailed analysis of Alex's techniques. The demonstration that was supposed to be educational entertainment had become intelligence gathering of the highest priority. Dr. Stone discovered that Zephon was asking thoughtful questions about human physiology and training methods. The alien warrior wanted to understand how such a small frame could generate the precision and timing that had defeated him so thoroughly. She explained that humans had evolved as persistence hunters who relied on endurance, intelligence, and social cooperation rather than individual physical superiority. The medical discussions revealed fundamental differences in how humans and aliens approached combat training. Veltar warriors developed their natural abilities through practice and conditioning, but rarely studied the scientific principles underlying their techniques. Humans had created detailed understanding of anatomy, physics, and psychology that allowed them to optimize performance through knowledge rather than just instinct. General Kethvar called an emergency meeting with his senior officers to discuss the implications of Zephon's defeat. The military leadership struggled to understand how their combat doctrine could prove so inadequate against an apparently inferior opponent. They had always assumed that natural physical advantages would determine the outcome of any conflict. But Alex's victory suggested that assumption was dangerously wrong. The Veltar military began requesting access to human training materials and combat manuals. They wanted to understand how humans had developed such effective techniques for fighting larger and stronger opponents. The idea of learning from a species they had dismissed as weak challenged their cultural identity, but the alternative was accepting continued vulnerability to human tactics. Captain Lisa Park received formal diplomatic communications from the Galactic Alliance requesting detailed information about human military capabilities. The aliens wanted to know whether Alex's performance represented typical human abilities or exceptional talent. They also asked whether humans possessed other technologies or techniques that had not been revealed during first contact protocols. The political implications extended beyond military concerns, as trade negotiations and alliance discussions suddenly became more complex. Species that had offered limited partnership agreements now sought comprehensive alliances, while others appeared to be reconsidering their willingness to share technology with humans. The balance of power that had seemed stable for millennia was shifting as aliens realized they had underestimated humanity. Jake Morrison found himself planning for scenarios that had seemed impossible just days earlier. If other alien species requested combat demonstrations, it could lead to a series of contests that would further reveal human capabilities. Alternatively, if aliens became too concerned about human potential, it might result in preemptive action against Earth before humanity could develop interstellar military capabilities. The communication logs showed that news of Alex's victory had reached remote regions of the galaxy where isolated species were learning about humanity for the first time. Their responses ranged from curiosity to alarm as they tried to understand what this development meant for their own security. The ripple effects of 12 seconds of combat were spreading across thousands of light years. Dr. Stone realized that her medical research had become a critical intelligence asset as alien physicians sought to understand human physiology. Knowledge about human capabilities could be used to develop countermeasures or to identify other potential vulnerabilities. she found herself walking a careful line between scientific cooperation and protecting information that could compromise. Human Security's Yvonne requested a private meeting with Alex to discuss the techniques that had led to his defeat. The conversation between warrior and marine became an exchange of philosophical approaches to combat and training. The alien began to understand that humans had developed systematic methods for analyzing and overcoming apparently superior opponents. The implications of that philosophical difference extended far beyond individual combat, as alien leaders realized that humans approached all challenges with the same analytical mindset. What they had interpreted as weakness was actually a different form of strength that could be applied to technology, diplomacy, and strategic planning. The galaxy was beginning to understand that humanity's greatest advantage was not any single capability, but their approach to solving problems. General Kethvar stood before a display showing star charts of human. 6 months after the demonstration that changed everything, the galaxy looked completely different. The footage of Alex Cooper defeating Warcast Zephon had spread to every known civilization and sparked massive shifts in political alliances, military doctrine, and cultural understanding. What began as a simple training exercise had evolved into the catalyst for a new era of interstellar relations. Alex found himself reluctantly famous across multiple star systems as the human who had shattered alien assumptions about warfare. His victory had earned him respect, but also made him a target for every species that felt threatened by humanity's unexpected capabilities. He now served as an instructor at the first Interspecies Combat Academy, established on the neutral station, Harmony Point. The Academy represented everything that had changed since that day on the stellar dawn. Representatives from dozens of alien species came to learn human training methods while sharing their own techniques and perspectives. The facility buzzed with activity as beings who had never imagined working together discovered the benefits of cooperation over competition. Zephon had become Alex's unlikely partner in developing the Academy's curriculum. The former Veltar champion had transformed his humiliating defeat into motivation for growth and learning. He studied human training methods with the same intensity he had once devoted to traditional Veltar techniques. The alien warrior discovered that his natural advantages became even more formidable when combined with human analytical approaches. The partnership between Alex and Zephon symbolized the broader changes sweeping through galactic civilization. Species that had relied on natural superiority for millions of years were learning that intelligence and adaptability could overcome almost any physical disadvantage. The lessons extended far beyond combat, as aliens applied human problem-solving methods to technology, medicine, and social organization. General Kethvar had undergone perhaps the most dramatic transformation of anyone involved in the original demonstration. The proud military leader who had dismissed humans as weak now headed the Veltar reform movement. His species was adapting their entire military structure to incorporate human training methods while maintaining their traditional warrior culture. The general stood before a mixed group of Veltar and human officers, explaining how systematic analysis could enhance natural abilities rather than replace them. His conversion from skeptic to advocate had influenced thousands of alien military leaders who were discovering that strength came in forms they had never considered. Commander Jake Morrison now directed the Human Defense Initiative as Earth Prepared for the inevitable conflicts that arose when established powers felt threatened by newcomers. The galaxy's reaction to human capabilities had been mixed, with some species seeking alliance, while others viewed humanity as a potential threat requiring elimination. The initiative represented humanity's commitment to defending itself while avoiding the mistakes that had led to countless galactic wars. Jake's strategy emphasized deterrence through demonstrated capability rather than aggressive expansion. The goal was to ensure that other species understood the cost of attacking Earth while leaving room for peaceful coexistence. Dr. Rachel Stone had become the galaxy's leading expert on interspecies medical cooperation. Her research during the original demonstration had evolved into comprehensive studies of how different physiologies could be optimized through human training methods. Alien physicians traveled from across the galaxy to study at her research facility. The medical applications of human analytical thinking had revolutionized treatment for dozens of species. Conditions that aliens had accepted as incurable proved responsive to systematic approaches that humans developed through centuries of scientific research. Dr. Stone's work was saving lives while building the foundation for deeper cooperation. Between civilizations, Captain Lisa Park served as humanity's chief diplomatic representative to the expanded Galactic Alliance. Her job had become exponentially more complex as Earth navigated relationships with species that viewed humans as everything from saviors to threats. The diplomatic landscape shifted constantly as aliens adjusted their policies based on new understanding of human capabilities. The alliance itself had evolved beyond recognition as traditional power structures crumbled. Species that had dominated galactic politics for millennia found themselves competing with human innovations and analytical methods. The hierarchy based on physical superiority was giving way to a more complex system that valued intelligence, adaptability, and cooperation. Lieutenant Ben Richards monitored communication networks that carried news of human achievements across the galaxy. Every success story reinforced alien perceptions of human capabilities while creating new challenges for diplomatic relations. The spotlight on humanity meant that every action was scrutinized for signs of either benevolent cooperation or potential aggression. The communication logs revealed the ongoing impact of Alex's 12-second victory as species throughout the galaxy continued to reference the demonstration. Children of dozens of alien civilizations learned about the contest as an example of how intelligence could overcome apparent disadvantages. The story had become legend, while its implications continued to reshape reality. The Academy's training programs attracted students from species that had never previously interacted with each other. Crystalline beings from the prismatic worlds studied alongside methane-breathing entities from the outer rim. The diversity of perspectives created learning opportunities that no single species could have achieved alone. Alex walked through the Academy's main training facility and watched former enemies working together to develop new techniques. A Sarok warrior practiced human grappling methods with a Zephyrian hive representative, while Veltar students studied human anatomy texts. The sight still amazed him after months of witnessing such cooperation. The training methods that had made Alex's victory possible were now being adapted for dozens of different physiologies and combat styles. Each species brought unique advantages that could be enhanced through systematic analysis and targeted practice. The Academy was proving that cooperation created stronger warriors than any individual tradition. Zephon approached Alex with a data pad containing reports from field tests of their combined training methods. Veltar units that incorporated human techniques were achieving success rates that exceeded anything in their military history. Similar results were being reported by other species that had adopted human analytical approaches to combat training. The success stories extended beyond military applications as alien scientists applied human research methods to their own fields of study. Breakthrough discoveries in physics, engineering, and biotechnology resulted from combining alien intuition with human systematic analysis. The galaxy was experiencing a renaissance of innovation that benefited every participating civilization. Alex reviewed reports from across the galaxy, showing how the ripple effects of his demonstration continued to spread. Remote species that had never heard of humans were now requesting information about human training methods. The legend of the 12-second victory was inspiring beings who had never imagined that apparent disadvantages could be overcome through intelligence and preparation. The Academy's success had led to proposals for similar facilities throughout the galaxy. Species that had been enemies for millennia were discovering common ground through shared learning experiences. The combat training was becoming a foundation for broader cooperation in trade, science, and cultural exchange. General Kethvar visited the Academy regularly to observe the progress of integrated training programs. The alien military leader had become one of humanity's strongest advocates while maintaining pride in his own species' warrior traditions. His transformation demonstrated that growth and adaptation did not require abandoning cultural identity. Dr. Stone's latest research showed that the benefits of human training methods extended to psychological and social development as well as physical capabilities. Alien students were developing confidence, analytical thinking skills, and cooperative attitudes that influenced their behavior long after leaving the Academy. The political implications of these changes continued to evolve as traditional galactic power structures adapted to new realities. Species that had ruled through physical dominance were learning to compete through innovation and cooperation. The galaxy was becoming more dynamic and unpredictable, but also more creative and prosperous. Alex stood in the Academy's central courtyard, watching sunset paint the artificial sky in brilliant colors. Students from dozens of species practiced techniques that combined their natural abilities with human analytical methods. The training that had once been intended to demonstrate human weakness had become the foundation for unprecedented cooperation. New group of students arrived each week seeking to understand how systematic thinking could enhance their natural capabilities. The Academy had become a symbol of possibility that inspired beings throughout the galaxy. The message was simple but revolutionary in its implications for civilizations built on assumptions of fixed hierarchy. Zephon joined Alex in the courtyard, and they watched together as their students continued training into the evening hours. The alien warrior had